Welcome, guys. It's our next chat, and our next guest today is another Springbok legend, Pieter Muller. Welcome, Pieter. Good to see you again. I see you've lost a bit of hair since I last saw you there. With me, obviously, as always, is Gavin. Welcome.
No, thank you very much. I can say I've got a little bit less hair and a bit more grey than both of you. So I think this getting old.
Maybe lockdown's treating you worse than it's treating us.
True.
Well, he's got young kids, Gav. So I suppose that also helps.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, there's more the grey of the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually, funnily enough, I was with Pieter the night that I think it was the night my son was born. I remember we were at some function, and my son was born. It was obviously 1993. It was in the build-up to the Currie Cup final that they won when Harry was coaching. I don't know if you remember. We were at some function, and you and I had some kind of like we'd loggerheads about something. I don't know what it was, but and we sort of made up that night. And we had a drink, and then I said, "Oh, by the way, I became a father for a second time today." And I told you that my son's name had been named Pieter, and you were impressed with that. Sorry, just whilst we were on the parenting thing.
But I think that time when you were still a news, writing some stories, and I think some of it wasn't too nice, So you just need to sort them all out, but it was all good fun, and part of the sport we're in. You have to take the criticism.
Yeah, I can't remember what the criticism was about. I'm glad I didn't get into the field with you though, because you've always been a very nice guy off the field, but you're like people say that you're a bit of an axe-murderer on the field.
No, I never was. It was just a matter of try to push your authority down, to dictate. Not dictate, but it's more, just to get, somebody upper hand, so he's looking at you rather than what's happening in the game.
It's just funny that what's actually quite funny to me though is that the person who describes you like that, who says that like you're a hell of a nice guy off the field, but when you were on the field you were like a real sort of, you really got into it, and he I don't know if he used the word ex-murderer, but the person who said that about you was actually, funnily enough, Mark Andrews, and it's quite rich coming from him because Mark's also a very nice guy off the field, but I wouldn't have wanted to play against him.
Yeah, look, I think his name could be Psycho then, because he just climbed in and didn't give a crap, about anyone else. Doesn't matter if you're lying on the same side or not, He did, he just stumbled all over you and knocked the crap out of you. So, no, you can't talk much.
Yeah, no. It was. I remember thinking it was quite rich coming from him, but I mean, he was actually very complimentary to. I mean, he really rated you as a great teammate. Pieter, I remember exactly when the first time I saw you play. It was a late summer, early autumn afternoon in 1990. It was one of the last games that I probably went to as a spectator, where I could take my shirt off and sit at Kings Park in the sun. It was a Test Unions day, and Free State, I can't remember who you guys played that day, but you were basically, it was either your first game or one of your first games, and you must have been almost like a kid then, and you played fullback. Do you remember who you guys played against that day? It was, but you played brilliantly, and you were like the man of the match. It was a curtain raiser. Natal played Western Province in the main game, but you guys played in the main curtain raiser, and you were the man of the match.
Yeah, there's a bit of story behind it, because I think I was 20 at this time, and it was Free State playing the Northern Transvaal. I was called up on the Friday night. I mustn't say, but me and my girlfriend was. But in Bloemfontein, just smooching in the car type of thing, and her mother walked out and knocked on the car door, and it was all steamed up. So says, your mother's on the telephone on the line, and I'm like, oh, Herbert, what's happening? So I had to walk of shame to the house and answer the phone. My mom says, listen, you need to pack your bags. You're going flying tomorrow to Durban. I'm like, BS, it was not going to happen. Almost talking nonsense. So that is how the whole thing happened. I got on a flight. I think it was still one of these Currie brothers that actually rented this jet plane and flew from Bloemfontein to Durban. I think arriving, one of the liaison officer picking us up, fighting the traffic through Durban. That time you couldn't get to Kings Park, and then walking through the change room, and 20 minutes later was on the pitch.
Who did you replace? Who was injured? I mean, obviously there was a late withdrawal.
Yeah, it was actually Juba. That was Juba. He got injured. So because they called me, I think because I was training with them, because we in Bloemfontein, my brother was still involved. So I was at training with them, and so I knew all the moves and that. So they just said, no, pull him in. For a lighty to look at Pieter Muller and the Algard Millers and the Eben Skeepers, your eyes is like big like this, So, but yeah, it was a great experience and just played well that day.
You played very well, if I remember. I mean, I remember it was a standout of the game. I mean, I'd never heard of you before that. The talk was that you were Helgaard's brother. I was going to ask you, you played fullback that day, if I remember correctly. Had you always played fullback?
No, I played at school. I started playing fullback when I was in Standard 8 or Grade 10, where they call now a very legendary coach, Lapis. He converted me from centre to fullback, So just because that time I had a bit of speed and a bit quicker than I was. And he said we need a fullback that can cut the line. It was a big thing in Great College to have, a fullback that can cut the line and add on to say extra player. What do you call it? A key player as well. So and I had to kick, so I started trying to kick for post. Didn't go too well. I had JC Pina helping me, so slowly build that up, and that's where it came from at that time.
So you came like the conventional route through Grey College. I mean, like Bloemfontein. I mean, Bloemfontein was a real sort of factory for good players in those days. In fact, it still is.
Yeah. No, I was being born there. You just went to school there, and just went through the whole culture from primary school to high school. And part of the culture is seeing the first team. You have to go to all the games, so it became part of who you are. As a player.
Would you been come out of school about the same time as Charles Marie and Ollie and all those guys?
Yeah, look, I was about a year in front of them, but I took my time at school. So Ollie and Ruben and all of them came into my class, So, but we had Naka as well, Charles Marie, myself and Ruben in one class, and the class was normally what we call an A5. That's Afrikaans 5. That is normally the guys that can't decide between science and maths and that. So we took all the subjects, to make it easy to study, so you can play sport.
Okay, sorry, Brent.
No, I was just going to say, because after I saw a little stat saying after school you went and played a bit of club rugby in Ireland. How did that come about?
It came through John Robbie and Helgaard was big friends, and I think it was just before everything started changing, and but there wasn't Springbok rugby, and I was just still a lighty. So John Robbie said to me, "Listen, I've got a club to go to. It's my former club. Why don't you go and play a season there? They'll pay your flights, and you'll get a bit of work here, and you can get a couple of pounds, and just to pay for your meals every now and again." But that's how I started. And they played one season. We were in Division 2, and we went to Division 1. But played against like Irish players. At that time, I know the centre. I can't remember his name now. Brenden, what's his surname? I'll get to it. But it was playing against most of the island players, and I think they had started the confidence of, geez, I can also play provincial or international rugby as a youngster and 18 and 19 years old.
It's always fascinated me, and I know Brenden mentioned it to me when we were talking to you that you and Helgaard are brothers, and you don't really look alike. I mean, I wouldn't say that you sort of look like twins. And how much older than you was he? Because I mean, I remember watching him play rugby when I was, it must have been early 1980s, and you came through in about 19. As I say, the first time I saw you play was 1990. I was at school when I watched him, and I'd finished university when you came through.
Yeah. No, there's a 6-year difference, So my mother is more blonde, and my father was, more the dark skin and black hair. So that's where the two variations comes in. It's like my two twin boys now; they both blonde, So there's nothing of me in there. So I don't know what the hell happened, but it will be the same, I think.
Okay, so you didn't, you never had that thing with Helgaard that some, great brothers, sporting brothers like the two Pollocks, Graham Pollock and Peter Pollock at cricket, and where they have this big rivalry, because obviously you were so small. I mean, you couldn't play back garden rugby against Helgaard. You would have ended up quite broken.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mention it. We on a Sunday, parents normally go for a Sunday sleep. We stayed in a house, but across the road from us, the old flats, and right in front of the flats was these open grass. But it must have been 10 meters by 4 meters, and me and Alga will play every Sunday one-on-one rugby against each other. Always crying, walking away myself because they was beating me, and now and again I get a try, and you never let me score. And then we got guys like Talbot Thomas involved, and then some of the kids, school kids, and we started playing against each other, 2v2s, and that's where you actually become tough, and they hit you hard, and you get up and you start again, and you try to punch somebody in the face, just because of anger. But that was part of us growing up. We always played. On a Saturday we played rugby, or played touch rugby, or there's always something going on.
Okay, and did you settle? I can't remember. Did you settle in the Free State team after that game in Durban? If I remember correctly, you and Brenden Venter ended up becoming the combination at Free State for a year or two, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a bit on and off, a couple of games, at that stage. But the next year it became a bit more, we started playing a bit more in that next year. Then Halgarten was moved to either fly off or wing, at that stage as well. So, but me and Halgart only played about, I think, 4 or 5 games together, but not a centre pairing together.
If I remember correctly, when you first started playing, it would have still been left and right rather than inside and outside. Okay, so you played. I remember you played with Brenden, and it wasn't like you were the inside and he was outside, or he was inside of you. It was like depending on where you were on the field.
Yeah. Look at the old days. I think the old days, but it was normally you're either inside or outside centre. So, but I mean, today, I think it's changed a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so in 1991 then you were playing for Free State. Did you play in that game against Western Province where the streaker came onto the field and tackled FC Smith?
Yeah, I remember that, yes.
Okay, so you're playing.
It's one of those things you don't see till it actually tackled, so it was just out of the blue, I don't think you focus on it, but yeah. We had a couple of incidents, and I think that's one of the funny ones there.
I still remember the guy's name. I think it was Brian Borendorf. I don't know if he's embarrassed about it, if he's still around. I mean, it was a long time ago. Okay, so then not long after that, in fact, then you must have decided to go to Natal, because I know you pitched up in Natal in '92, and in those days it was like rugby wasn't professional. It was like the Shamateur era. And most of the guys who came down to Durban, I know Robert de Pree was given a house by NOU. What lured you to Durban at that time? I know Dani Root and Maggie Root at Harlequins were probably involved in some way, weren't they?
Yeah, look, what happened was with me, I was with Free State, I think it was the last Test Union days. I had a slight injury, and the doctor just said, for me to rest. And I think the coach then was Sonicus. And they said, no, Peter, rest and all of that. You're in the team. You're going to be, playing for the Currie Cup team and all of that. And they played a Test Union game. And on the way back, on a Sunday, my brother just said, listen, I just want to let you know, you're not going to be playing in the first Currie Cup game. I said, why not? So he says, well, as Harry Sonica said, no, we're the same team. So I'm like, geez, okay, that's not a bit horrible. I could have played because the doctor said I can play, but he didn't want me to play. And I a bit disappointed, and I asked him what's the story. And when I saw Harry at the practice on the Monday, so I asked him what's the story. And he basically just bullshit slightly, around why he did it and all of that. And I just realized if you're gonna lie at me once, you're gonna lie at me again as a coach, and that just stood out. And then I think I phoned. So I met Craig Jameson just before, and I phoned him up and said, listen, I just want to come down to Durban, and I just want to play. Just give me a job and, get me a car and I'll be fine. And that's how I think that time was College Rovers was sponsorship with some hydraulic company. And yeah. And they just gave me a lot. And I think the next week I was down in Durban, as simple as that. So packed my stuff in my car and left,
Okay, so I was wrong when I said Dani and Maggie Root. It would have been Peter Rodsteth who was involved.
Yeah, it was Peter Rodsteth, yeah.
Rodseth at Rose. Those were great days. Those days when club rugby was still quite big. I mean, I don't know how much club rugby you played in Durban at that stage, but it was quite a good vibe.
Yeah, I think we played about 3 or 4 games in the beginning. You had to play, and me and James played a couple there together. So I still have to go. I think in Pangeni one day, I think club does, and of course they chirp you because you're this ex-player or whatever, played Springbok or junior Springbok, and so it was horrible. No, it wasn't great, but it was great fun. The club, it was a good club.
Were Joel and Gary? Well, I don't know if Gary came later, Gary Teichmann, and Joel was fly half. So you were quite a star-studded team, and Henry Coxwell probably.
Yes, Coxie was there as well. Yeah.
It was quite. That was almost. That's what I'm saying. Like those fun days of club rugby where you almost had like a provincial backline. Sean Everett, might have still been playing then, who later who's now the Sharks coach. Was he playing there at that stage?
He was also there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you came down to Durban. Okay, so it wasn't Madani and Maggie Ruitt, it was Pieter Muller. You came down and you had a great start at Natal because that was the year, of course, that they won Currie Cup for the second time. Nasser said it would take another 100 years, but it took another 2.
Yeah. No, Nas mouth was big that stage, so didn't expect Natal to do it a couple of times more,
Yeah. Okay, but it was a big year for you because it wasn't just the year that you won the Currie Cup for the first time. It was also, of course, the year that you made your Springbok debut. And Nas, myself and Brenden spoke to Nas a couple of weeks ago, and he was quite complimentary about you, actually, about that test and about how well Donnie, Gerber, and yourself gelled in the back line. What do you remember about that first test? It was a massive test because it was the first time we were back in the international stage for many years, and I think I remarked to Nas when we spoke to him, I said, it was actually a bit crazy that we're playing the All Blacks after not playing international rugby for so long.
Yeah. Look, I think, it's at that stage everything was a blur in the sense that we, it was a blur playing the game, but I think about the hype around it, made it so blurry in a sense that even if you look after the test match, you just realize it went so quickly, just on the test match itself. But just that hype that week, and you can see the proud South Africans, just to see playing rugby again and against the All Blacks. And I think we played above our, I think it was just that rush was there, and was 80,000 people, 70,000 people behind you. I think that just made us play better. I think the next week against Australia, we actually saw the lack of our skill in certain areas, the coaching, and I'm not saying John Williams and them were bad coaches. I just think Australia, New Zealand advanced. I think from All Black side, it was just more our pride, to play well. And we did well in that game, but still blurry. If you're going to have a look at it, I can't remember much of the game, except the clips you see here and there.
But you ended up playing for the Springboks for quite a long time, or many years later, you were still playing for the Springboks. So you know how much more professional it became later. It must have been quite bizarre at the end of your career looking back, because I think I'm probably right in saying that in those days it was still like the team could only sort of meet, only come together on the Tuesday or the Wednesday before the test match. Was that the case that week?
Yeah, it was. And normally it's at a quiet Monday training session, or Sunday you will fly in. Nobody knows about it. So it was top secret stuff. But it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday you trained, and Friday you played the test match. That was the rules, I think, at that stage. That's what you could do. So it made it quite difficult to gel as a team.
There was quite a lot of political stuff around that game. I don't know if you how aware you guys were of it as players. The national anthem, or what was then the anthem, the D-Stem, wasn't supposed to be played, and Louis Late sort of defied that because he was the Transvaal. He wasn't the South African rugby president yet, but he was the Transvaal president. He defied that, and you ended up standing there, and the old South African anthem was played, and that caused a huge ruckus. And Australia nearly ended up not playing the game the following week because of it in Cape Town. How aware of that were you guys? And being so young and so new to international rugby, it's a heck of a lot of extra stuff to have as a new player on the scene.
No, at that stage, I think the whole week was basically, there's they're not going to sing it, you're not going to sing it. And in the change, I think Louis Late came in a couple of minutes before. He says, listen, you're all going to play it. We're going to play it, and we're going to sing the stem, I think at that stage of 92, to play for the Springboks against All Blacks and doing the national anthem was important. Wasn't the right thing to do, but at that stage, I think it was just a pride. I think of all the people that were sitting there, just to say, "Hey, we're back," and just to sing that anthem. But yeah, it was controversial, and I know the next week was a very tough week in that sense of from a, I think, a PR exercise for SA Rugby, and
After that, a couple of weeks later, you did win the Currie Cup against Transvaal at Ellis Park. You probably remember Theo van Rensburg missing that kick.
Yeah.
Yourself and Dick were in the midfield in those days, weren't you? Jeremy Thompson was already at Transvaal, so you and Dick were playing together. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
How did you guys gel? Because there was a similarity. There was a sort of a bit of similarity in your game as well at times. So, and he's a hell of a character as well, isn't he, Dickie?
Yeah, look, he's a character. He's off the field a character, but on the field as well. He keeps you busy on the field as well, because he would distract you with comments and what's in the crowd, and if there's a nice goal as well. So it made it difficult, but a very thinker of the game on the field. So, yeah, it was interesting, but he made it easy. I think if you look at Algaard, they also talked about him. He was a thinker on the field. He was thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, and Dick was exactly the same. Not physical, but you knew what he's going to do, and you could read him quite well and quickly as well.
Yeah,
it's quite funny. It's quite funny. You should mention the Dick. That Dick used to sort of point out the pretty woman in the stands, because we spoke to Ollie a few weeks ago, and that's exactly what he said. Maybe we should have Dick on, actually. He can talk about what you guys did on the field.
It was it's funny, but sometimes even in the circle as well of halftime, and you just say, guys, top level, this grandstand, there's some nice blondie up there looking, and they look up, and like. So it was always up to something, So you never, you always keep your guard up with him.
Sorry, Brenden.
Yeah, Sarah. Just before we go on too far, I just wanted to ask about those test matches. You were playing with Donnie Gerber, Pieter. I mean, was that the only time you ever played with him? And just, obviously we all know he's a legend of the game, but from a playing point of view, how was it gelling with him and having a guy with that sort of talent on your outside?
Donnie was always our hero. It's in the 80s. When you sat there 4 o'clock in the morning watching in New Zealand. So, but playing with him, he was, I think, much of a calmness. With Nas and Donnie, it made it easy. But he was just a calmness, and he was great running off the ball. And running into space and finding So, I think that's what made him so great then, and even. You saw in those test matches, and even when we went to France and played over there, you could see. I think we worked well together, and the spaces that he created, or other way, and he was always the finisher that actually finished into a try. But yeah, even at that stage, you haven't lost that class yet. He was. Look, we all know what each other's weakness and strength are, but we just tried to work around that as well.
Donnie, of course, would have been your partner for at least some of the tests on that end of year tour as well, because you guys were the first tourists to leave the country since 1981, and that was, I mean, as you know, I was on that tour as a journalist, and that was one heck of a trip.
That was a long trip, put it that way.
Just maybe remind us, because I remember chatting to you for a book a couple of years ago where we spoke about how. In 1992, on that tour, we went everywhere by bus. Well, you guys went by bus, and the journalists went on a separate bus. And we basically took France, and it was lekker because we got to see lots of France. But it wasn't what would be like modern players would think, geez, that's ridiculous. They spent, and we used to actually sort of like, get up early in the morning to get on the bus and spend the whole day on the bus. And you'd have to go to those functions that the French were holding. And I remember that, I think it was Hugh Reese-Edwards complaining to me that if he saw another prawn, he was going to puke, because the guys weren't used to the sort of French cuisine. Just talk a little bit about that.
Look, I think the trip started in Bordeaux, and we never stopped for about 2 weeks. And like you're 100% right, the schedule wasn't, I think, today when you've got a baggage master there. Every player, you had still your baggage guys, but you had to pack your own bags. You have to put it to the bus in the morning. It was hard traveling, because you travel. Say, for example, after a game on Sunday, you maybe wake up, breakfast, travel, get, like you said, late. Then you've got a function till 12 o'clock at night. Monday you train throughout the day. Then that afternoon you've got something on again. Then at night another function. Then the next day is a game. So you're prepping, and it was continuously the whole time what you were doing. This was just function after function after function, and it was quite hard. You did it in the training time. You had an hour, and sometimes they'll put you in a hotel that's 20 kilometers away from where the training pitch is, and it's some mates. Not albergo, what they call it, where it's like half dusty and they haven't been used for 10 years. Right. So the friends really made it difficult. I think only towards the end we started, like in a good African style, trying to toy and say, no, we're not accepting the hotels where we stay and it's too far away. So we got upgraded, I think, once to a nice 5-star hotel, I think, right at the end of the tour. But it was tough. But I think the nice thing came out of it, sitting across Nas and James Small, myself, Robert de Prier, and Donnie across the other side, those busters, and actually to know the guys, and you always think, mate, I'm not saying Nas was a bit of a windgat or an idiot, but because you always played against him. Now you can understand the guy, how he thinks, and you can talk about stuff. And we're still mates today, with except now James had passed away, but we're all still, friends, and you talk and you can have a conversation. It's not odd, in the sense of even the age difference.
When you mentioned the hotels just now, I remember I was chatting to somebody at some point, and they were asking me, like, why were they complaining about the hotels? Like, how can hotels be so bad? And then I said, well, look, imagine that you were in South Africa and you were in Joburg and you were playing a test in Joburg, and they put you up at Kempton Park for the 2 weeks. I said it was like that. I said they didn't put you up in Sandton. You were always in the sort of in those areas, like the Jacobs area in Durban, like out in the bluff or somewhere. It was very much like that, wasn't it?
No, they tried to put you as far as away in an industrial area to make it difficult. So you just stay in that hotel, and sometimes motels. It's not even a hotel, So it was it mentally was draining in a sense, But I think that what brought teams together as well, I think that was slowly a lead up to even 93 when we did the All Blacks as well. That was a lead up to 94, 95, getting a team together and, becoming mates, in a sense.
The following year when South Africa went to Australia, we had John Williams as the coach. And looking back, I always sort of feel maybe I was a little bit unfair on the guy because I didn't realize what he was working with. Because I later interviewed him for that book I did on the Springbok coaches. And he told me about how disorganized it was, that he didn't even know that he was the Springbok coach. And, they appointed him. And about 3 weeks later, somebody else said, listen, you've been appointed a Springbok coach. I mean, it was a very disorganized time. And then Ian Mack came in. And obviously you knew Mack because you'd won the Currie Cup with him before. So how much of a difference was it when you went from that era? I think Williams was in charge for 5 tests. And then it felt like the following year, even though Mack wasn't successful, that South Africa rugby, and it wasn't just John Williams' fault, but Springbok rugby did something sort of take a step up to become a little bit more professional in inverted commas, because of course it was still an amateur sport.
Look, yeah, I think we don't know what went the background with the 92, but I think with Mac already in 92 we were trying to play a different style game. I think we were looking at the Australians, and Mac has been out there, so you knew where the game was going. And I think that's what Mac tried to implement. But I think he's more his coaching style was a bit different. I think from an autocratic and style to more a more laissez-faire type of style. Player management was more important. What was for him very important, and the relationship. But with that was the skill levels as well, to build that up as well. And I think that took a bit of time, especially when you got different provinces coming together and players. It takes time to understand his ethos and his coaching style. And I think that took a bit of time. And especially in the All Blacks, went on that 93 tour, it was hard, tough rugby, to be in Chicago, sorry, ice cold, and then, traveling and that. So it was a difficult tour, but still, I think that was a stepping stone of where we're going forward.
You first went to, you said 93. That tour was actually, I was on that 94 tour as well to New Zealand. You actually went to Australia first, remember? And,
sorry,
and you guys could have won that series. You could have actually won. Were you on that? Were you injured, or you were in that tour, weren't you?
Yeah, no, 94 is talking. No, Australia was 94.
93 against Australia, where you had that test where James was sent off, and you would have won that series probably if that hadn't happened.
Yes. Sorry, I've got it wrong. Yeah.
The wrong way around, yeah. It was 94 that you went to New Zealand, and Australia you went to 93. That was like, I mean, that was quite a undertaking as well, to play against the world champions, and because they were the world champions at the time, with Michael Lana and Nick Farr Jones, I think, had come out of retirement to play in that series as well. I mean, that must have been a really, but from what I always hear from people, I remember Uli Schmidt telling me that it was like a really enjoyable tour from the team coming together, and you guys had some good times on that tour.
No, it was. I think that's where everything. I think with Mac and them also got together, but it just. I think that tour we knew we could beat them. I think with Aussies, especially after the first test, I think what they've done well, the Aussies in the second and third test, they analysed the crap out of us. They knew exactly what we were going to do, and they counter us in that sense. But I think, like you say, we're right. That series could be won. It's one or two mistakes. But I think that just shows you that if you want to play a world champion, that you have to be on top of your game, and your analysis of your opposition should be just as good or better, better. And that's what they did well. They knew our calls, they knew our moves. They actually targeted the right people to cut them down in certain areas to make it difficult, because they knew physically we would have beaten them. But I think they just beat us from a technical point of view.
Provincial rugby was like a war in those days, and you will remember in '93 there was some particularly spiteful and bruising games against Transvaal. There was a Lion Cup final. There was also a Currie Cup final. That Currie Cup final I'm talking about is the Uli final, where he got that ball from Cabos and scored. How much provincialism was there then? Because I remember you guys had to go to Argentina sort of like the next day after that game, and I think it was Kevin Putt who got on the plane, and he broke the ice a bit. Apparently, apparently the air hostess asked, "Where are you going to go?" Because the flight was going to Joburg first before going to Argentina. She said, "Where are you heading?" And he said, "We're going to Currie Cup country," because Transvaal had won the Currie Cup. But I mean, there was a lot of tension in those days between the players, wasn't there?
Yeah, if it take 92, 93, 94, it slowly started breaking down. It was still, you still have your pockets, and I think it's just because of familiarity about your teammates that you're closer together. But it slowly started to disappear. I think the guys were, linking in more with the different, provinces, but it gets better. But I think today you still find guys that, because they play together, their mates or their team roommate, they always will stick together. I think today it's much more. Nobody talks about it. But I think it's still there. You see it with the box even today. The teams, as much as they one unit, but you still see the pockets of it. I just don't. People mention it.
Just looking back at that Currie Cup final, there was a heck of a lot of pressure on Natal. It was like the first one they played in Durban. They had won the Currie Cup two years, but they played in Pretoria and then they played in Joburg. How much did the pressure sort of play a part in beating you guys that day? Because you dominated much of that game, but you just couldn't put Transvaal away.
Yeah, I just I can't even remember much of that game, to be honest. But yeah, I think it was difficult. It was at home.
Harry was the coach.
Sorry?
Harry Fullion was the coach as well.
Yeah.
And there was always that thing that was hanging around Harry, that he couldn't win a final and all that. And I think that might also have played a role.
Yeah, it could have, I think, but on a day, it's just, the best team won that. They pressurized it at the right time. But this Currie Cup games goes, you can go both ways. And it's just, I can't, to be honest, I can't remember much of it, but it's just would have been nice to win at home and have a good, win a final at home, to go away. I think that's what any team or any player wants to do as well. Especially that time, I think Sharks were on a hype in a sense of, of their brand as well as the players and the team as well.
I mean, there was an absolute. I mean, it was a massive crowd. I mean, and the build-up was incredible. I remember the way it was built up, and I mean, it was a very different sort of game, certainly at provincial level in those days.
Yeah. It was intense. Intensity was still there. It's still an intense game. It's I can't compare it to today's game, but it was intense, quick games, physical. Guys got climbed in. At that time, he still could ruck and and ruck a guy anywhere except his head. So it was quite tough on the body as well.